My new thing, it fits in a clock, it rakes in a car, pulls on my brain. Are you ready to see? This is my new thing. Are you ready to see? This thing is my new thing. Shyness will show, excitement will glow. I'm sharing this thing. That thing is my new thing.
Hey folks, it's comedian Dan Wilbur.
And comedian Zach Sims. And I hope you know what you're listening to. It's called My New Thing, a show about comedians' newest thing.
And my newest thing, let me tell you, Zach, this is breaking news.
Getting right into it,
ready?
he does. Sure.
Oh, I'm not going to introduce the guest until far down the road.
No, of course. People come for the
want
intros.
That build up.
Mm-hmm.
They love the tension. Oh, they don't know what it could be, even though it says it on the title.
A lot of people don't realize people stop listening to W2TF 5 minutes in. You know, they just want to hear that Marin monologue, and then they go about
vitamins.
their day. Yeah, sure. It's
I
been
got a vitamin guy.
It's been so long that I actually listened to that show. All I have is I just shit my pants. But I'm sure that's many ads.
Pow!
Yeah.
It stays in your mind. I love him.
Sure.
Anyway, once I saw him, we were on the subway after a show, and I don't think he liked my set, but he asked me if comedy was ever meant for, quote, groovy shit. And I was like 20, and I was like, sir, I love you.
This was 1968, right?
Yeah,
you were next to Lenny
I
Bruce.
love him.
Mm-hmm.
I love him. Every time we talk about someone, it sounds like we're talking shit, and I'm genuinely saying I love Mark Maron.
Yeah, I mean, we're only punching up. One time, just real quick, I was on a show with him, and this was in L.A., and I was smoking backstage, like outside behind the venue, and he just walked by and kind of looked at me and went like, ugh, and then walked and left. And honestly, that was great. It was like a really nice. And I say that completely sincerely. It was like a very nice. It's all you want, really.
You know what's funny is we can only punch up. That's where we're at in our lives.
Oh,
There's no punching down.
I'll make fun of some open micers in Des Moines. Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Well, the late breaking news is that I just got back from my first book club in Huntington, New York.
Oh.
I'm okay with people knowing where I live. I
Sure.
live in Huntington. Come get me, you freaks. And we're at a bar. I was the only man. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about Miranda July's All Fours, which I read a couple months ago, but now I am newly obsessed with Miranda July, and I'm probably going to go back and watch her movies.
Oh.
And specifically that this book, the funniest part where people were talking about how she feels like her career stagnated and her sex life stagnated, and she doesn't know what she wants, and that's what the book's about, is like her menopausal sort of break from her husband and opening her marriage, etc. It's a very interesting book. And I was laughing hysterically in the book club because I was like, that's so funny to think your life is over, like, ever. Mm-hmm. Every single artist is like 22 and they're like, I guess I'm done.
It's true.
Like when I finished a book that I wrote when I was like 24, and I was like, well, that's it. Sure. It's over. Mm-hmm. It's over for me. And you know what? I was right.
Sure.
Because I bombed an audition for Guy Code.
I was going to say, look at us now.
Real thing.
Mm-hmm.
Your career is never over. It's never
Sure.
over until you're actually dead. Mm-hmm. And even then, some of it lives on. But that's not the point of the book. The book, All Fours, you should read because it's about women. It's about women's sexuality premenopausal.
Yes.
So I know you'll be into it.
Sure.
Come on now.
I love everything premenopause.
And it's also about stagnating in your art in such a way that you need to sort of throw your whole body into, do I need to have an affair with this young man from Hertz? Or do I need to redecorate a motel room? Which one is it? Is it both? Do I need to throw my whole self at this art thing? And that's genuinely what it's about. It's a It's a very good book.
Now, when you said Hertz, I initially imagined a mover, and I thought, oh, that's a strapping lad that you could see somebody really, a middle-aged woman. But this is just a guy working behind a rental car desk.
Yeah,
I'm
the
realizing.
rental car.
Yeah.
Rental car Hertz.
I guess he has
And
access to a
that's-
lot of cars. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. No, I think it's because he's not very interesting. Because he's not... He's a dancer also, and that makes him...
Okay.
elusive. That's not the word I'm looking for. Elusive? That's the opposite. Makes him intriguing.
So he can
So-
dance, and he has access to a variety of Hyundais, which is
Yes.
really, I guess, all you want, really. Get down
That's
to
really
it.
all you want. That hot bod. Car or a man?
Sure.
Which one is it?
My obsession this week is a quick one, or my new thing. It's really my old thing, but it's just telling something to your therapist that surprises them and kind of bothers them, as I think one of the more validating experiences in life. To whenever, I'm sure anyone who has ever been in therapy has had such an experience where maybe you share something from childhood or something that a partner did or just some sort of story, and by the end of it, the therapist just goes like, "Whoa!" Or or just like, "I don't understand why that happened," and you're like, "Yes, it is weird, isn't it? My childhood was bizarre. Thank you. Now go tell my mom," or whatever. That's it. Just a simple pleasure.
Oh, you're not going to give us an example? You're not going to open up?
Well, sure. No, of course not. Well, I did. I did share. I used to do a joke about this, but I shared. I won't go through the whole story, but a tale of being a kid. I talked about this today. Being a kid, and we were going to Disney World, and overnight we stayed in a hotel, and I put Top Gun, the film, the original, on the TV. And then the next night, it was my dad, my stepmom, my brother, my sister, and I. We were in this minivan. I was sitting in the back, and I began to hear the rumblings of my mom or my stepmom and dad having like a verbal argument. I would always say at this point, I want to let you know that my stepmother was a terrible woman. And I don't mean that like she's not good at like keeping a clean house. I mean, she just was a bad person.
Yeah, right.
But so anyway, they got in this big fight in the front seat. And at one point, my dad turned back to me and he was like, "Who told you to put Top Gun on? Did your mom tell you to put Top Gun on?" So my dad thought I was like trying to sabotage his second marriage through my mom via Top Gun. So, there was just that. And then
Whoa.
yeah, when she kept being like, "I don't understand why he did this." Like, yes, I agree. It
Yeah.
doesn't make sense. It's almost
doesn't
like
make
he's
sense.
mentally ill.
No, I like is when a therapist says, "Wow, well, that certainly is creative," because it's a backhanded compliment of I will spiral so far that I'm like, I think it's because in 4th grade I watched too much TV, and then like this girl rejected me, and now I'm a piece of shit at 40. And they're like, yeah, that's not true. You could just change your mindset. I did have a bit in therapy, which is a rare find. And I'll just add to this, even though this was your obsession time, and I didn't even ask what your obsession is. And that's called being kind.
Sure,
And,
that's what we're here for.
And reading the room. But I had one where all my normal friends, and I'll say normal friends, we won't out what they do. Maybe some of them are in the book industry. Maybe some of them are librarians. We don't know their names. We don't know who I'm talking about. They all do coke and stay up until 6 a.m. and drink a lot. And
Is that
all my
often? Is
comedy-
that a common librarian activity, doing coke till 6
I think
a.m.?
librarians are cooler than you think. I think you have it in your mind that a librarian's just sort of like angry, and it's like, well, they're angry because they're hungover.
Well, it's good hours.
Good hours, government job.
Yeah, maybe not the most. Librarians are a tremendously valuable part of society, but maybe not the
Yes.
most ambitious job in the world. So maybe there's a little more
Sure.
free time. Yeah, to cut
Sure,
loose.
and you
Sure.
get. But I was thinking about it. I was telling my therapist. I was like, "Isn't it funny? It's these people are all doing the drugs, and then every time I'm in a comedy show green room, someone's like, "Yeah, I had a kale smoothie and my feet hurt. I have diabetic foot pain," and I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah.
I'm like, the show is so late. It's 10:30 p.m.
Well, that's because you mostly
home.
play hospices. But I get
Hostels. I said hostels.
Sure,
I do.
sure. No, that's true. That is, more and more. I feel like more and more comedians are like physically on their game, in a way they never were, and so many of them have children now, and they care about them, which is a real big difference. Is comedians have been having kids for decades, but they just never learn their names, and then would maybe on their deathbed be like, oh, that's Jimmy. Oh, I should have been a better father to you, Jimmy, but sadly now I'm dead with all my money and stories of getting blown in
Tim
various
Conway
places.
asked me to hang out, and I left for 40 years. I'm sorry.
Absolutely. He just kept doing Dorf. I could have been around a real short person, but instead I was around this grown man on his knees. And sure, it was hilarious, but there was more to it. That's what George Carlin was like. But you know who would be a great father if he had kids, and who is on his game, is our guest today, is Josh Gondelman. He's got a special coming out shortly, I believe. We'll plug it, or we'll plug it later. But now, strap on the feed bag. Listen up, you little piggies. It's time for Josh.
I just like to know about process. Do you write on with a number one pencil? Do you write
One
with,
pencil.
Yeah, number one pencil.
Old school.
I found out that the late Nelson DeMille writes with a number one pencil because it's softer.
Oh, interesting.
Doesn't make your hand cramp.
I didn't know which way the numbers went, like if one was the softest or the hardest.
It's the Kinsey scale, actually. It's about how hard the pencil gets.
One is one the gayest pencil
Yeah.
or the straightest.
That's right.
It's like DEF CONs. I know that the low numbers are the more severe DEF CONs.
Yeah, sure.
But I don't know. I always forget with Kinseys and pencils.
I think we should always accept that we're threes, no matter what. The 3 of 6. Anyway, this is so exciting to be here. Thank you for being here, Josh Gondelman.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to chat with you both.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's start this way, and I've never done this. And honestly, I'm terrified that I started talking. But should we start?
You're on fire.
Should we start something we talk now, Josh? In general, do you consider yourself an obsessive person, or somebody who has a lot of hobbies?
I don't. You know, I think I have a few things that I'm like pretty into. It's like whenever I get asked like what are my hobbies, I feel like embarrassingly incurious.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Same. Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
And I'm like not great at being a completist. Like, if I get into a new band, I will get real. I'm going to listen to all their albums. I'm going to know everything about Guided by Voices. And then I'll find like 3 albums I like. And then I'll find like 5 songs on each of those albums. And then I'll forget about it entirely.
Oh, yeah. Well, I would say, as we're talking about music, my favorite band, if someone were to ask me, I would say The Replacements.
Sure.
And I know probably 15 of their songs.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, that's the most of any band.
Yep.
And I'm excited
that's
that
it,
later
yeah.
we are going to talk about your favorite band, Sublime. So
Okay, enough. Too much slander to start off. Spreading misinformation. AI is going to pick it up.
That's true.
Just the way it thought I was married to Fiona Apple.
Oh, wow.
really?
Yeah. The Google AI summary was like, Josh Gondelman and Fiona Apple are married.
Oh.
And I was like, well, this news is going to rock my household. Maris is going to be so impressed with and mad at me.
Yeah, right?
Just 'cause
Yeah.
your wife was tweeting about fetch the bolt cutters? Or
It was
something?
that I Googled my name and Fiona Apple's name to see if we were married. Because I had a stand-up bit that I knew there was video of somewhere on the internet that I was like trying to remember the words to. And on my albums and stuff, I just name all the title tracks like silly names. And so it's not helpful to me later. So I Googled Josh Gondelman, Fiona Apple looking for that. And I don't know if it scraped from that or just a tweet that I'd made about Fetch the Bolt Cutters about it contained like wife Fiona Apple, and then it just was like, oh, they're married. It's like my wife Fiona Apple is what it took from that.
That's how much I was paying attention to your tweets during the pandemic
Yeah.
lockdown.
You knew that immediately.
I
yeah.
remember all of your tweets. I keep
Yeah.
them in a file. And what I do is I go, has Josh Gondelman tweeted about this yet? And I'm saying tweet.
Those were tweets
Those
for
are the-
sure.
those
Well,
were
sure, yeah.
That was the word we used.
In
back
our
the
household,
day.
my wife Maris, who I've already mentioned, she was like, we're just gonna keep saying tweet. That's like in our household, like even because neither of us is like posting on Twitter anymore, but even for Blue Sky or whatever, we just call them tweets.
Sure, it's not a bluey or whatever,
Yeah.
you know?
But just like on Twitter or X now, they're not called like zzz.
Yeah, what kind of monster is saying I X'd, you know? Come on.
Well, that's what
Yeah.
our friend did it. He was like, I love your exes. And
Well,
I was
that
like,
guy-
you're fucking my exes?
They're all
rude.
Texas. That's a bad person, probably.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
well, he's a very good person.
Oh.
We all know him.
Okay.
Let's shout him out. Not on this podcast.
Okay.
We'll shout him out later. So were you ever obsessive as a kid? Like, was there any one obsession that stood out, even though you're not a completist?
I definitely go like I rip through stuff in phases. So like I'll read like especially when I was a kid, I would read, there were all those authors that would just like write a book for kids a month, like an R.L. Stine type. So I like really went wild on Goosebumps and Fear Street for a while. The Matt Christopher like kids sports books. I would tear through those. A little older, I went through like a Stephen King phase where I would do like 5 Stephen King books in 6 months or something. And so
How
like
old were you when you did that?
that was like probably mid-teens.
Okay,
Stephen King.
I used to carry around a Stephen King book when I was in like first grade and tell everyone I was reading it.
Yeah, you were just trying to get laid.
I was trying to get
It's like girls love spooky stuff, and we all know what sex is.
just checking.
I had a complete, it wasn't a complete because he wrote so many books, but I had like a 5-volume Matt Christopher book.
Oh hell yeah!
That had The Kid Who Only Hit Homers. It's
Yep.
the only one I remember, and there were a bunch of other ones that I would bring
kind
around
of the
to school.
precursor to Moneyball.
It was a little
The
bit,
true
yeah.
outcomes of
Yeah, why don't worry about walks when all you can hit is home runs. That was the ghost of Babe Ruth, right? Or someone who's supposed to be Babe Ruth visited this boy. That's how I remember
That's
it.
so
at least.
funny.
Yeah.
I remember like nothing about the specific.
Sure.
Was it all baseball too? Because the one I remember was like a kid who played third base or something.
There were a lot of
That was who's called the kid who could only play third base.
the kid who had lacked the range to play the middle infield. He would do other sports, I think, but baseball is
Yeah,
definitely a big one.
big one.
I also liked there was this series of like Monday Night Football books. It was called The Jersey. So it was these kids who would put a jersey on and then they would become, O.J. Simpson or somebody like that. Yeah.
Oh, that one. That book changed a lot over time.
Yeah, they had some updated versions. Yeah. It was filled with sorrow, but those were fun. I loved all those sports books. Yeah.
Same.
Were you a sports kid, or were you just keeping it to the reading?
I was a sports kid.
You were a sports kid?
Not,
What did you play?
I was not great at sports. I played baseball up through like I was like, I think probably the oldest kid in Little League, which is embarrassing. And then played basketball up through, I was like the end of the bench on the JV team my sophomore year. And then was like, this is the end of the road for me.
Right. What was your position?
Well, it was tough because I was like probably a 4 or 5, but I was not very big.
Right.
So I was not especially useful on the
Sure.
court because I didn't quite have the outside shot or the speed to play guard, and I was too small. Like in our school, it was a smallish school, so like the sports I think were like specific physical attributes mattered more.
Right.
We were not as good at. We're like, you kind of need someone tall.
Sure.
Because if the other team has one, then you're like, uh-oh.
You were on were you on an all Jewish basketball team?
I played in a 3-on-3 Jewish tournament because my high school wasn't all Jewish. It was very little Jewish.
Okay.
Very Little Jewish was the name on that's what it said on the side of the
The Very Little Jewish Academy. Yeah.
Fewer Jews than you think. That's what it said.
And have you met Josh and Sam? Oh, you've got the picture. Yeah. So what was I going to say? Oh yeah.
I'm just happy they do that because we had like CYO or whatever. It was like
There was a
Christian-specific-
USY basketball team,
Yes.
but that was like a little further from where I grew up, and I had a bunch of friends in it. But I think it was just like too much of a pain in the ass for my parents to drive me to, and like not affiliated with our synagogue at all. And so I would occasionally dip in on their events, but usually it was just like the public high school that I went to in my hometown.
I really don't know why I needed to know if there was a creed involved in your sports history. But
You wanted to get down
We
to the bottom
probably
of it.
listened to some Creed during warm-ups. It was that era. Well, I just...
what are you talking about?
Yeah.
This is not related to anything, but just you saying Creed. My brother went through a period of time where he was writing Christian parodies. So he would take a hit of the day.
Yep.
and then make it more gaudy.
So was it funny and religious or just religious?
Just religious.
Okay.
No real humor. So parody, I don't know. Maybe that's not the right term.
No, I know what you mean. Because I didn't know if it was like this is funny and it's Christian, or like it's funny maybe because it's
Well, it
Christian.
was, yes. It was, unbeknownst to him, it was quite funny. But he did one for hire, which is already about God, basically.
Oh, yeah.
And it was
I
more
thought you meant he
explicit.
was hired to write one. I was like, oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah. Billy Graham
You're like,
brought
no,
him in.
He made higher
made
by
a-
creed
Yes.
more religious.
Yes. So I think it was instead of "Can you take me higher?" it was like "I can take you higher" or something like that.
Oh, just
Well, that
flipping the
sounds like a
pronoun.
Lenny
Yes.
Kravitz, you know.
I thought you can Jews take me higher. I was like, no.
Yeah, it was pretty strong. It was pretty strong.
Okay.
No, yeah. Anyway, that's just an odd thing
I love that.
That's a perfect,
my brother
that's a
did.
perfect
Yeah,
obsession, though. We should have him on the podcast.
yeah, he would love it.
He would love it.
Absolutely.
But
yeah.
I was only thinking about basketball because I thought you were a basketball nerd now.
I am a basketball nerd now.
Celtics.
Yeah.
and-
Big Celtics fan. A big NBA fan, not a big college sports guy.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then I've become, since the Liberty moved to Brooklyn, that's like my one New York team. And it's, I actually like really, actually, that sounds so
Actually.
like Weasley.
It turns
But I
out
do,
it doesn't suck.
No.
Actually.
Yeah.
I've gotten really into it since I like the Liberty were kind of my gateway into being like, oh yeah, I should just watch more W games, especially during the summer. And it's like such perfect scheduling where I'm like, I need some basketball, and there's less WNBA basketball by virtue of being fewer teams. So it does like consume less of my time, which
Yeah.
is nice.
No, sure.
So this is a deeply personal question now.
Please.
When do you sleep? Because I feel like you are a very multifaceted comedian. We have a lot of comedians on who are writer comedians, which is the easiest thing in the world because no one can write for more than an hour. And then you stop and you take a walk and you eat a gummy and you play a video game and then you hope that stand-up happens. But you seem to have a lot going on at all times. And I just wonder, since we're on the subject of obsessions, what's a day in the life of Josh like where you actually are productive?
So the last few years, I haven't super been in like writers' rooms, and so it does keep the day free to be unemployed.
To come do podcasts.
I know. Well, so it's like it like really varies day to day, but there are some days like in the fall I wrote a pilot script with a friend that we're like kind of noodling with still and seeing where that goes. With our mutual friend of the podcast, Allison Leiby, we wrote something together, and so that would be like, oh, on those days I like get up, I take care of emails in the morning. Allison would like she does her thing in the morning, and then we would meet up at like somewhere between 11 and 1 and work for a few hours, and then I would come home and like maybe a podcast, eat some dinner or make some dinner on the rare occasions that I like had the ingenuity to cook for me and Maris, and then like go out and do a spot. And that wouldn't be like uncommon. And then I come home and after stand up and like watch a West Coast NBA game that I really like to. That's like, because my wife is an early to bed type.
Right.
And so
I remember your wife asking you this on a podcast. That's why.
What do I do?
How did you do it? Because you were writing a book while you were writing.
Oh yeah.
On a TV
Well that
show.
yeah.
And I'm just wondering which, like, do I need to take Adderall or no? Because I know you're a naturally.
I do
dude.
feel pretty like lucky brain wise that I like don't have a
We're
ton.
lucky brain wise.
I feel it. Because I don't have a ton of trouble. Like there are certain things I don't do a great job, and I know this about myself, taking on like big projects on spec. Like the idea of, oh, I should just write this movie and then see if anyone wants to buy it is like so much more daunting to me than other things that I think maybe other people have a harder time with, of like doing something regularly or like sending out booking emails, which I think a lot of people, even really funny, talented, experienced comedians are like, oh, I just don't know. And I'm just like, I don't know. I'll just shoot my shot, you know?
Sure.
So I think I'm like pretty tenacious about that kind of stuff, and I've gotten like less fearful about putting myself up for stuff. But it is a big thing that is on spec is like the thing I'm least likely to do. And that's why I'm so grateful to get to work with a like very funny, talented friend, because I think we probably finished that script together faster than we would have individually,
Right.
even taking aside that there were two of us working, you know, aside from that fact, like just the fact that we held each other accountable and we're like, which sounds bad, but it just meant like we showed up to the same place and like worked on it together rather than me being like, I'm going to spend 3 hours working on this by myself.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's why I like a book advance.
Same.
Like, we'll
Yeah.
take this away from you.
Well, that's how I wrote the book, was that it took me, I'm like a bad book proposal guy, but once I had a book to write, I was working Wednesday through Sunday at Last Week Tonight, and then Mondays and Tuesdays I would set a goal of like 2,000 words a day, on my weekends each day, and so like sometimes that would smudge to like 4,000 words for 2 days if I had something to do on one of those days, and I was really exhausted, and I left that job at the end of that year. Not just because of that, but I think that kind of brought on my feeling of like, wow, this is a lot, and I wasn't able to like separate those two things in my mind of like, yeah, idiot, you wrote a book. That's why you felt like you were always busy and underwater.
Sure. Dan's obsession is your lifestyle, Jeff. So that's why we're
Well, we both have pugs. We both have
We do
wives.
both have pugs and wives.
We've got pugs instead of kids, wives. We write books. I'm a Josh Gondelman cosplayer.
There's definitely something about, especially like you're saying, like the specness, like the spec projects, especially, you know, if you're writing for a show or you're used to stand up, you're used to such a immediate feedback.
Yeah.
And writing something, we've all written a script on your own or whatever, and you finish it and you're like, well, I guess, do I show this to my mother?
Yeah.
How do I,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
is the nebula?
Come in here.
Tell me it's good. Tell me it's good.
I'm always yelling at my mom to look at projects.
Come in here.
Stop wasting time.
She lives very far away too, so it's tough. Yeah, you just yell. Yeah,
Just yelling out the
Echoing.
yeah, out the window. But yeah, so I get that. I get that completely. Now let me ask, if we can move on to sure. Now your obsession, you've come to us here today.
Yeah.
Is the band, the legend, that is They Might Be Giants.
That's right.
Correct?
Yep.
I'm saying that right?
I think you nailed it.
Okay, good. How did that come about? Tell us about this a little
Yeah. So I, like a lot of people my age, I think, I was introduced to They Might Be Giants through the cartoon Tiny Toon Adventures.
Oh, interesting.
They did two of them.
They did two. It was Particle Man, right? Was like a little wrestling short, and it was Istanbul was Constantinople, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't that the other one?
Yeah.
And it was like kind of about Turkish geography.
Sure. Uh-huh.
and cartography. And so I remember that, and I was like, that's great. I love this. And then I wasn't a child anymore and like didn't have the context for them as a band that makes music for adults.
Right.
So I think there were probably like 10 years where I like didn't think about that band very much.
Sure.
And then in 2000, it's the same, but in like 2005, I happened to see They Might Be Giants live under hilarious circumstances. My friends and I road trip down to Louisville, Kentucky for Lebowski Fest, the Big Lebowski themed festival, which is a thing you do in your 20-year-old guys.
I guess so.
And we had a good time. And they were playing at this big outdoor amphitheater. And I remember being like, oh, sure, that's nice. Like, because they just didn't have any context other than when my uncle had passed away in like 1998. So this was like 7 years before. I got his CD collection, and he had a copy of Flood,
Right.
which is kind of one of their big landmark. Both of those songs, I believe, are on that album. And
I just listened to it 10 seconds ago. For this podcast.
And they just did a big 30-year anniversary tour for it.
Wow.
It's a great uncle band.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Everyone's uncle has
And this
album
is the uncle you picture. He was like the first person I knew with a laptop, and it was like the size of a suitcase. And like, yeah, he was great. He was a really like.
That's an amazing memory to have.
Yeah.
The first laptop.
Yep.
Owner.
Definitely of the people that I knew.
Was he busy enough that he needed a laptop?
He worked in computery stuff.
Oh, okay.
So it was
sure.
like he was like an early adopter, as I think kind of like a thing about him that he liked.
Because if he was just carrying around a suitcase with a computer, but he didn't
No.
And he was just like a bookseller or something. But he also liked They Might Be Giants. That would be
No. I think it was of professional utility.
Well, I was just thinking about this as a great obsession subject because I think of They Might Be Giants as being an extremely nerdy band.
For sure.
And that when I first listened to Flood, and even when I heard the Tiny Toons, I was like not into it. And now I can't. It scratches something in my brain where I just love this band.
Yeah.
Now.
And I don't even mean when you said nerdy band and I agreed so quickly.
I mean it as a compliment.
I of course. Yeah. I didn't think it, but I also mean it is a band that it is easy to be a nerd about.
Right.
Like it's easy to like in a way, not that you are a nerd, but like you said, basketball nerd. It's like a similar thing of like, oh, it's a band that's easy to like get deep into because there's so much there and it's such a specific sound.
They're like fish for virgins. That's what they're like.
That's not a nice way to say it.
Well, I said it nice first. But I feel like fish, you get sucked into fish. You're going to 17 shows a year and you're doing mushrooms.
Yep.
And I feel like you go to They Might Be Giants and you're like, I'm going to follow this band around. You're probably like sober, living a van life. You probably also own an accordion.
I bet they're fooling around the Might Be Giants fans.
I bet they're
like
fun,
sex
right?
with each other.
It's a lot of people that bring their kids now, I think.
Oh, they
which
made
is,
kids.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
There it is. That's
So there you go, Dan.
They're not virgins.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
They're procreating. But they're so good live. And there's like even the songs that sound sometimes a little slight on the records, like just kind of a airy production and composition, they put like a little more heft into it live and you're like, oh, this is a fucking good band. Like it's not just oh, I like these songs. It's like, oh, they really bring it.
Are they jammy? Would you call them jammy?
I don't think so,
Okay.
really. It's more they're tighter.
Yeah, they're tighter.
They get a little. I guess at times they probably make a little space for it, but it's certainly not like, oh, they're gonna do Particle Man. It's gonna be 9 minutes long and it's gonna go to outer space and back. Yeah, it's like very structured. Most of it.
This reminded me of a time I saw Weezer multiple times.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And every time I've seen Weezer and they play the Blue album, Pinkerton, and the Green album, maybe, which is sort of our space.
Yeah.
When we were younger, that people just go nuts in Cleveland. They were like, this is the best. But one time they just jammed and played, songs off of Maladroit.
Sure.
I don't even know what that is. Or Hurley. They love to play Hurley.
Yeah,
And
that's
they were
one that like
jamming.
really like once we're in Hurley territory because there were like I unsurprisingly in high school, college, big Weezer fan.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I went up through like Maladroit, Make Believe, at like I'm an apologist for some of that stuff. And then they just lost me for another like 8 years and I didn't even like check in. And then I was like, people were going, oh, the new stuff's kind of good. And like some of it, there's some good stuff scattered in there, but it's like, it's not end to end burners like those early albums, in my opinion.
Make Believe, is that Beverly Hills on that one?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that's one of the first CDs I ever bought.
Wow.
Yeah. That and James Blunt's You're Beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Very cool. Yeah, well, was he here?
That was your first. How old were you?
I was 17, something like that.
Oh, wow.
So growing up very religious, one of the benefits was coming to, like Weezer, I pretty much only listened to Pinkerton, the Blue album, and a little bit of the Green. I just I don't need to go beyond it. And Beverly Hills, which did rock, of course. But even that whole album, I don't really know,
Yeah.
Because I was thinking, I bought the Blue album on tape. And it was the same day
On tape?
I bought it on tape.
Wow.
It was a cassette tape. And then I was also a little kid. And it was like the first big laugh I got, but I didn't know I was doing it, was I really wanted the CD. I wanted Deep, is it called? It's Deep Blue something.
Yeah.
They made Breakfast at Tiffany's. And I was obsessed with that song as a little boy. And I came in and my babysitter had told me the band was called Deep Blue something, and I thought he couldn't remember the name of the band.
Oh, that's funny.
So I went in and did like a little
Who's on
classy-
first?
Yeah, I was like, I'm looking for this band, Deep Blue something, and the guy laughed so hard. He was like, "This kid's got the
Yeah, that's good. Good
And
bit.
I didn't know why he was laughing. I was
Sure.
so embarrassed. And then I got the album, and I was like, "Oh, I'm an idiot." And that was just a little fun memory for you. You were 17.
I
Remember it, even more clearly.
I mean, I remember the video to Buddy Holly.
Yeah,
That's like,
great
that's
video.
a early memory I have. And I thought it was a cool groove.
Yeah, cool groove.
I had no idea who any of those people were. And I remember the Losing My Religion video. That's not really related to what we're talking about. But that's just an early.
We're talking about bands.
Yeah,
We're
that's
talking
just
about
an
bands.
early.
I
think
think about bands.
Yeah.
I think it's reasonable though to see the Buddy Holly video as like a child in the 90s and not be like, Happy Days. That's what they're doing.
Yeah. No, definitely. Yeah. I just thought it was holograms.
Now, this is a Zach question that I'm stealing.
Oh, wow.
Do you like the band Cake?
I do like the band Cake.
Oh, yeah. Well, we were discussing earlier that
what they
I don't
sound like.
have a lot of They Might Be Giant, but they feel very cakey to
I
me.
think they're in the cake zone.
Yeah.
They're in the cake zone.
I often see them kind of put side by side where it's like music with kind of an offbeat sound and like often approaching like emotional subject matter through like an kind of from the side, like an oblique lens on something that's really like emotionally incisive.
Here's a good TV show pitch that will never work, but I went on this journey and now we all have to go on it. Is you do Is It Cake? They're just playing a bunch of music.
A bunch of trumpet solos?
Yeah, trumpet
That's
solos.
great.
And like, is it the band Cake? Are we in the Cake zone?
Might not be a full series, but
No. It might not even be a
You can throw that up on TikTok.
yeah, absolutely. It's a rock solid TikTok. I wouldn't bury that here.
Solid. You know what? I'm deleting this. No one steals it. Yeah, I was thinking of that era having a lot of strange sounds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I call them strange sounds. And like, again, to call it nerdy as a compliment, that they are nerding out about polka, and I can't think of, or polka instruments at least.
Yeah.
That They Might Be Giants are going down a weird rabbit hole that I didn't think a lot of people would follow them into.
It almost feels to me, and they're different things, but when you look at like Fight Club, the book / movie, you took the book, written by a queer man about, kind of toxic masculinity and all this stuff, and kind of the satire of materialism, yada yada, but it gets kind of co-opted by bros, so then people assume it's bad.
Yeah.
But they're both good. The book's good, the movie's
Yeah.
good. And I don't think people think They Might Be Giants as like toxic or whatever, but you see it as like nerdy, white guys sitting around.
And like, I think even people our age with the lens of like, and they do also make children's music, at, like specifically children's music. So you go, I remember the cartoon they're for like kids. Yeah. And it's like, they're for adults too.
Yeah,
They're
sure.
a lot of fun. Yeah.
That is a really interesting thing about who's intentionally making a children's album and who isn't. I mean, like the Beatles did it intentionally, I think, at some point, and then the Beach Boys did it intentionally. But then, it seems like an insult to be like, this is for kids.
Right.
But Flood, I think, is dealing with like really weird adult subjects.
There's like a song called Your Racist Friend about
Yes.
being like bummed out at a party because someone's friend is being racist.
Yeah, there's one where a grocery bag comes back to life.
Yeah.
It's reincarnated.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess kids like
That seems
weird
like something
stuff
a kid
that.
might
You know
like,
what
but
I-
still,
you know what?
yeah.
You know what? If I were a kid, I'd want to do that. I guess it's like the way that Shel Silverstein is for kids, and then sometimes you read it and you're like, "This, I don't think a child should be near this."
Yeah. Or like, I don't think a child is getting all that all that is here out of this.
Right.
The subtext, yeah.
And that's and that's what your uncle did to you. It's like, you're not getting it, man. You're not really hearing They Might Be Giants, except you inherited them.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go back to how you got into them and how maybe you think you could get other people into them. Where should we start if we weren't a fan of They Might Be Giants?
Ooh. Okay. This is a great question.
No,
you
that's a
guys
good
both
question.
seemed put off that Dan asked that. You're like, is this what a podcast is? I don't know.
Just trying to keep us.
It's a good question.
I love it.
In my head, I was like, I don't think people need to get into They Might Be Giants if they don't want to, but it's a
I
fair
think if
question.
I'm
nonetheless.
Point of this podcast.
If I'm giving an entry point,
sure.
I got into them by seeing them live,
Right,
and I was like, "This is great." And every time, like, I didn't go see the Flood tour, but I did see them at the end of last year, and I brought Maris, who'd never seen them live, and she had this experience of like, oh yeah, this is more fun than I thought, than I maybe expected I would have. Even she came because she's like, I know you like this. I'm not against it. And she's like, oh, that's a good time. And that's not to put words in her mouth. I think I'm summarizing her feelings accurately
She's
enough.
coming in after this.
She's coming in. She's got corrections.
She's actually in the other
She's talking
room.
about the corrections, but
There's a copy in there.
and so I don't think you have to see them live to enjoy them, but I would say they have a live album called Severe Tire Damage that is really fun and good, and I think captures the sound, which I would almost never say to advise anyone with any other band to be like, start with the live album, unless you're like Fish or the Grateful Dead or something.
Right.
But I do think in that way you go like, oh, this is a way in that sounds, there's even more like texture to it on the live recordings.
Yeah.
And I think that's really fun.
And today I think it was maybe my 50th listen to Flood.
Yeah.
On the way here. And I just forgot how funny they are.
They're so funny.
And they're being intentionally funny, which
Yes.
is hard to do.
In
There's
music, yeah.
Minimum wage.
Yeah.
Whipping sound. It's like, oh yeah, this is a joke for adults.
Yeah, totally. And there's like lots of like quirk and lots of charm. And I think like I've read that maybe they resist that categorization a little bit of like quirk, because they're like, no, we're like a band. And it's like, that's true, you are a band. But I think it is fair to say like it is a unique vibe.
Yeah.
You know what song I think is really great? It's a cover, but it sounds very much like them, is New York City by They Might Be Giants, which is like one of my favorite covers of all time.
Yeah, okay.
And it's really sweet. It's like a very straightforward love song.
Welcome to New York. Welcome to.
They covered the Taylor Swift song. It's about
sued for me singing it.
It's about loving New York City, but like the best, like the real thing is like the person I love is in New York City,
Right.
And the best thing about New York City is me and you, is what is kind of the
That is
punchline
nice.
to it.
That is
And it's
sweet.
like really, really sweet, and it clearly sounds like them, like the production sounds like them and the vocals, but it's a cover, and I think that's like, I think it is just like a very lovable song and a very nice entry point, because it's like really sweet and sincere, but in a way that feels a little playful.
Right.
Still, yeah, but it's not full on like, they have so many songs that are like, I'm gonna. They have some songs that are kind of like venomous. There's one called "When Will You Die?" That's just about like everybody hates you and we're all waiting for you to die. Is like the thrust of it. So it's like, I think there's you find the tenderness in the tender songs. I mean, like I did Dr. Worm at karaoke, and I was not a crowd pleaser. But a friend came over and was like, I hate They Might Be Giants, but I love that performance. And I said, "Thank you, that's really sweet."
That's all you
This
can
is
ask
a
for.
leading question. Have you ever been booed at karaoke?
I don't think so.
I have been. So just wanted to point
Why?
that out,
Yeah.
Because I picked a Kinks song and someone yelled hipster, and then a bunch of people were like, "Yeah, this is a hipster shit."
The Kinks?
And they booed.
Where?
It was at a comedy fest. It was
No.
a bunch of comedians.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they were comedy booing you.
Yeah, they were comedy.
You got
booing. They
razzed
were
by
like,
some
"This son of
butts."
a bitch." Yeah. Oh, you're right. I was being accepted. No, I just thought it was so funny because they all picked. I went first, and they all picked. Someone did "Loser" by Beck.
Yeah.
Somebody did. Someone was doing
Beck,
rap.
famously a band that no hipsters like. You're famously an artist.
But I
that-
just mean he did the whole
big
thing,
hit.
and people
You're
were
right.
like, yeah, this rocks. Anyway, I'll name names. I'm not afraid.
Who did "Loser" by Beck?
It doesn't matter. But Eli Uden was there, and I think he doesn't remember.
You
booing
are
me.
naming names.
He probably wasn't booing me. I looked at him, and he was shedding a single tear while everyone else was booing. Anyway, I like that they are funny, and I think what's the problem is that everyone's so self-serious in music. Not everyone. But I think that
there's a lot of
many
seriousness.
people, especially, we're doing Super Bowl halftime shows
Yeah.
where we accuse people of crimes.
Yep.
And even Kendrick's pretty funny.
Yeah.
He's a pretty funny.
But he's funny in
rapper.
like in a serious way.
Yes, he's funny in a serious way because he's still cool.
Yeah.
He still manages to be cool, and I feel like They Might Be Giants do not care about being cool, except that you just said like, no, we're a band.
Yeah.
And they were in Fort Greene, like in a building before it was if I don't know what Fort Greene was like in 1980.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing it wasn't what it is today.
Sure.
And so if they're in like 86 trying to make songs that sort of sound like Devo.
Yeah.
And they're just cool Brooklyn guys.
Yeah.
And then they pull out an accordion. They're like, this is cool. Like, we're going to make this cool.
Yeah. I
And
think
I
that's
don't think they're trying to be goofy.
right. I don't think they're goofy. I think that there are like eccentricities to the music and like a sense of humor and like whimsy at times, but I don't think they're like, aren't we doing a silly thing? Except for maybe some of the kids stuff, which is like, it's for kids, so they get a little like sillier with it.
Right.
A little gentler too.
This, I gotta say, a solid pitch.
Thank you.
And they don't do what's the thing Cake uses where there's that little spinny thing? They're not doing
Vibrous slap?
Vibra slap.
Yeah, they're not doing
I
that,
looked
right?
it up because I was gonna buy one. Sorry.
Cake
To what
I don't
end?
know why I was kicking like a...
Cake is Cake is a good band, but it does feel like more of their fans are maybe like mad that the barista doesn't smile at them. If that makes sense. Yeah,
They're old.
Yeah, maybe they're just old. Yeah,
They're just old and angry at
Yeah.
baristas because I think we all get to an age where something clicks in our brains where we just start to be like, this fucking kid.
And there's
I'm not there yet. I just want to reiterate. I'm just saying every comedian.
Other
has
people.
Yeah.
yeah.
I try really hard. Like, I think as praxis, I accept bad customer service.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Especially in ways like that, where it's like, oh, you got my coffee order wrong? That's your right, sir.
I think when it's going so bad that it's kind of funny,
Yep.
I really don't.
Yes.
I feel nothing because I'm like, well, I work in retail, and that's pretty much been my only job is like becoming a human cash register. And like I can't think, and I know how bad it gets. So when someone like really screws up or they're rude to me, I'm like, I get it. I get it.
Yeah,
I'd
for
be rude
sure.
to me.
I was out to dinner with Maris and two friends, and I asked the server. I was like, I know this is sometimes annoying, but I go, everything looks really good on this menu. Do you have a favorite thing? And I'm not gonna like disrespect you by going, nah. Whatever you say, that's what I'm gonna order. And they were like, this is my favorite thing. And I was like, thank you so much. That's what I'll have, please. Or that's what I'd like, please. And then they came out with something different. I was like, that's not what you told me this was going to be. And I was just like, all right. Sure. And ate that.
It was
fine.
a bowl of Frosted Flakes.
I get, because Maris has type 1 diabetes, I get a little more vigilant when we're out together. Sure. Because she very much is like trying to not rock the boat. And she's like trying to kind of make requests that are too healthy for her, but like won't always, make a fuss. But like, a couple times, the big one that's really hard, because if it's like a food and she's like, can you not put the sweet drizzle on it, and they do it, she's not going to be like, send it back, and she'll just going to scrape it off. But it like, the tough one is sometimes we'll be out and she'll go, kind of a whiskey Diet Coke, and they'll give her regular Coke.
Yeah, sure.
And that's like a colossal difference.
Yeah, that's a
that
big
like
deal.
if you just take a big sip out of that alone could fuck up her night. So like I try to be the one that's like, I'm so sorry, but like I would never ask this substitution if it weren't like a medical thing.
Sure. Yeah.
So going back, I want to go back to Cake.
Yeah.
This is pertinent. I saw Cake live.
Oh, nice.
I saw them with Ben Folds.
Oh, yeah.
Equally funny and nerdy.
I saw Ben Folds
nerdy
last
group.
year.
Ben Folds did one of the best concerts I'd seen in at the Bowery. I'm gonna eventually get to a question. Don't you worry, Zach. That was for Zach. And
I'm just sitting here.
so the Ben Folds concert had like a quartet that he booked, and there was a flautist who everyone found attractive, and someone yelled it out, said, I love the flute player and I want her number. And then he made everyone like write a song impromptu called The Flute Player, and everyone was like chanting flute player, and we all like felt alive, and it was
That's
crazy. And then the other
You're
time I saw him,
beautiful.
and then Cake will play the vibra slap all night long.
Yeah.
But then they give out a tree to any.
Oh, I heard about
person.
this.
They give a tree, like they're like, go plant it, like the Lorax. You know what I mean? Like, give it
Do they volunteer for the tree, or is it? Because that's
They're
what-
like
yeah.
deputize you.
Well,
You're an arborist.
Yeah, it's like
It's
rude
like that
almost.
Adam Newman bit about the burritos getting launched into the crowd when you're not even hungry, and you're like, well, I gotta have that burrito. Like, I gotta catch that burrito.
Sure.
In the stands is like, as soon as someone brings a tree out on stage, you're like, who wants this? There's like 500 people screaming, and then they don't realize like, oh, I have to get in an Uber after
Yeah,
this.
I live in Astoria.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just gonna walk with the tree.
If there could be trees in my neighborhood, there would be trees here already.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So my question is, what is the weirdest or best concert either of you have seen?
Well, I can give a quick one.
Yeah.
My first concert was this guy Carmen, and Carmen was an older Italian man who used to sing gospel music and had recently pivoted to rap. So it was in the Superdome.
Wow.
Whoa. Yeah.
Wow. There were only 15 people.
Yeah, it was very intimate, but it was the Righteous Invasion of Truth tour riot. I just remember the lyrics were like, Webster's dictionary say a riot is like an unrestrained outburst, and it goes more. And then there was love nothing but God, hate nothing but sin was one of the lyrics as well.
Wow.
So that was the first, and I've written a lovely essay about it many years ago. But that was the first show I ever went to. Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah. Pivoting to rap as a 50-something Italian man is a hell of a move. Yeah, a lot of leather.
Andrew Cuomo missed his calling. Fund the police. That's him.
Absolutely.
Gosh, I used to like keep a list of this for just such occasions. I think that first time seeing the Might Be Giants is like up there in my top 10.
Right.
Oh, you know what? This was one recently. I've seen a few. Like I got to see a few of my like all-time favorite groups who have since lost members. And so like I'm wearing a Tribe Called Quest t-shirt. I saw Tribe while Phife Dawg was still alive. I saw the Beastie Boys in college while MCA, Adam Yauch was still alive. I thought that those both are really great shows, both in Worcester, Massachusetts, weirdly. But Maris and I went to see Ted Leo did a 20th anniversary tour for Shake the Sheets, which is one of my favorite records of all time. And Echo Astral opened for Ted and the Pharmacists, and they were really great. I'd never seen them before. They had like the last song on their album is called I-90, and it's just super, super heavy and good. And then I don't know, that show, and it was not nostalgia. It wasn't just like, I like this song. I was just like, man, they are really cooking tonight. It was fucking great. One of the best shows I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I also will just like go see the same 5 bands every year. That is one of the things, like when you were like, you seem always busy. It is like, I've started doing much more like recreational stuff at night outside of
That's
comedy.
cool.
Yeah. So I go see a lot of live music.
Yeah.
I did. Yeah. I go to we've talked about this. I go to a vinyl club, and that's where just speaking of
Fun.
nerdy music. And it's always like an 80-year-old man who's bringing in Rolling Stone records that have never been released that he stole from somewhere.
Wow.
And then the kids are all into Gorillaz and Daft Punk.
Wow.
And like music we listened to in the aughts, which is just a very interesting thing, is that the music we're talking about now is that I'm like, because I was listening to that album, now They Might Be Giants is my favorite band right now.
Yeah.
For the next 20 minutes, they are now my favorite band because
They're so good.
It's just so interesting, and I was like, this is so different than anything I'd been listening to. And then a couple weeks will go by, and I'll be back to Daft Punk and whatever, like stuff.
Do you listen to the
in our
records?
teens.
You go to the club and you listen to the records?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, we do.
That's
And
fun.
You play one track. People bring cookies. It's extremely wholesome.
Where does it happen, at people's houses or at a record store?
It happens at a bookstore.
Bookstore.
Because where else would I do? I do things that are for mostly extremely old people. I go to see movies that like original prints of 1950s films with retirees. That's what
I feel like that is big. This because to me, like, there's stuff that I've never seen. Period. And I know people love it, but like they just put the Pride and Prejudice back in theaters, and they're selling out shows. And it's like, I feel like there's going to be more and more of that like repertory theater
Absolutely.
stuff.
Yeah, I think that's even in bigger theaters are doing it too. Yeah, 100%.
You mean the Pride and Prejudice, the one with Keira Knightley and
Yes, I believe
and
so,
Tom?
Yes.
We call him Tom.
Yeah.
He has a real name. But
Well, it's like they
We know
spent
who he is.
$80 gazillion making like a live action, Little Mermaid or whatever, when they could have re-released Little Mermaid in the theaters.
I
Right.
said this specifically because like about one of the recent ones, because people I think have like an affection for the new Lilo and Stitch.
Okay.
right.
But like some of like everyone hated the new Snow White.
Yeah.
And it's like in you know, I think that people are pretty unfair to poor Rachel Zegler about
Sure.
But I think like the movie just kind of didn't connect with people. And it's like you could have for so little money just let Snow White out of the vault and then people would have paid to bring their kids who have never seen it in a big theater before.
I thought of another great trend we could start.
Yeah.
If you don't do live actions. You make animated things that just don't need to be animated at all.
Pulp Fiction.
So, Pulp Fiction, but no, you do the Pride and Prejudice, and you're like, we're doing an animated movie.
Yeah.
There's antics now.
A zanier
with
with maybe a little They Might Be Giants
Little Might Be
soundtrack.
Giants.
That's fine.
That's how we brought it back.
Yeah,
love
there you
it.
go.
So, do you have any current obsessions? That's where we'll start to wind down.
Like
right?
a newer thing.
Like a newer thing, or
You know what? I'm going to stick with music. I'm like ready to do a full. This is like a burgeoning obsession, and I was talking about this the other night with a friend of the podcast, Greg Stone, because Greg was saying he brought up his favorite rapper of all time is Aesop Rock, and Aesop Rock coincidentally had put out an album last week, and I found it just as it came out and have been listening to it the last week, and I'm like, I gotta go back and do a full re-listen to his stuff because it's so dense. And I remember like as a teenager really thinking it was his music was very cool and interesting, but like being left behind kind of by the headiness of some of it. And I'm really excited to go back and be like, oh man, I wonder what this sounds like to like grown man ears. So I'm really hyped about it. And I had this conversation about the album with Donwell. I don't know if you guys know Donwell.
Yep.
Really, really great dude, great DJ and like hip hop artist and a really funny guy. And he and I were talking about like Don said that it's cool to see when people are like keep working and are like doing their best and most like refined and honed in creative work years into their career. And like it's almost a shame that doesn't get the kind of buzz that you do when you're like kind of coming on the scene as like a bracing new voice, where like the novelty gets more eyeballs on it than the like excellence or like the increased excellence even.
yeah, that's how I feel about my career. So,
because you were really, you played the Garden in '92.
I exploded at 22, and I wasn't ready. So, yeah, that's good.
I was just going to say that's why I feel that way about Louis C.K. You know, his best stuff is happening. What's happening now?
Yeah,
and we're not following it. You know,
it's a genuinely shame. Think there's a number of people who agree with you.
Sure, and we're trying to get them into our podcast. We'll take all kinds. We'll take the Fight Club fans. You know, the
all
wrong
kinds of Fight Club fans.
Yeah, absolutely.
So has this obsession helped you with writing? Helped you with your career? Did you ever pick up a guitar? Did you try to do anything to mimic the lives of They Might Be Giants? Has it informed anything?
I do
in your life.
It has informed a lot in my life. I've never picked up a guitar, but I do think that the way their longevity is really inspirational and their continued like creative persistence and like excellence is really commendable. And they have such a huge back catalog, but they're still writing and recording and putting out new music that's really great. But I also think that the way that they can span like, this is a very grown up sounding or like thematic record. And then this one is specifically for children. And this one is like meant for grown-ups, but kids can dig it too. And I think that there's something really interesting about making art that appeals to such a wide swath of ages, but like not as wide a band of tastes, you know what I mean?
Right.
Where it's like such a wild thing to be like, this is for a very specific group of people ages 4 to 100. Right. And I think that's really like fascinating, and I think it speaks to like a genuineness and a commitment to like following your artistic vision.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, actually.
I love that. I was gonna say something about I wish I thought of anything that was universally appealing.
And that's also a good way to end.
You know what I mean? One time I went to a show. You're gonna love this, and I'll cut it. I went to a show. I used to get booked at the Improv in Cleveland, which was a mostly black club.
Hello.
And I think it was a little bit of a like. It was funny that I was there.
Yeah.
And and it wasn't weird. I didn't I didn't code switch, as the kids say.
Sure.
Is that racist?
I don't think it's racist.
No, that's the exact term. I didn't use the voice. That's the Dune.
From Dune. Yeah. I was going to say the same thing.
So I was just being myself, and they thought it was funny. And I remember I went up, and it was like maybe my 10th time doing it, and I just ate it. And then a guy got up and just did a cappella "Since You've Been Gone." There were no punchlines or anything, and I mean he saved the show. This guy doing "Since
Just
You've Been
singing
Gone,"
the Kelly Clarkson song?
Were they laughing, or they
were
just were having a great
like,
time?
Well, it was the only premise was like, you girls have great breakup songs, like, and then he just did
And he
the
just
whole
sang
song.
the whole song.
A cappella, and it was great. He had a great voice, and
Yeah.
people were laughing, and they were cheering, and it was great. And I went home and I told my mom, well, I bombed. And because I was at home in Cleveland, I don't go home to my mom after every time I bomb.
Mom! I was at the Improv.
And I go, Mom, I ate it. And then this guy, oh my God, he was such a hack. I was trying to explain to her, like, this was bad. This isn't comedy. This is just he's singing. And I was like, and everyone just ate it up. And she goes, well, maybe you should think about doing something that everyone likes. And, I was like, wow. And she meant it sincerely, and she is correct.
Sure.
And that's what you should do with your art. Not to be popular for the sake of itself, but to do something that's good and speaks to you that you know that other people might actually
with like a generosity of intent.
Yes.
Yeah. I think a lot about that of like when you do something specific, it's not necessarily that you're trying to weed people out. Although sometimes, there's interesting stuff made that way, but it's like, because you're like, I'm putting this out as an offering. I like want to find the people who vibrate on this frequency. And I think that's cool. Yeah.
That's cool.
Nice. Well, that's great. When does your special come out?
I have a special. It's me just doing Kelly Clarkson covers.
You know what they want.
And I know what the people like.
Welcome to New York.
Still
Clarkson.
Still Taylor Swift, right? I have a new stand-up special. It's called Positive Reinforcement. It comes out on YouTube on Blonde Medicine is the record label I work with. It's their YouTube channel on June 27th, and then in the evening, and I'll if this comes up before then, I'll like be in the chat at 8:00 Eastern time, watching along with people, and then it'll just be there, I think, indefinitely. And I would love if you watched it. It's kind of been a long process getting it out into the world, but I'm really proud of it. My buddy Chris Werner directed it. He's really brilliant and like got a really great team together, and it like looks really cool and sounds good, and like it's really a testament to like how many people are involved in something where even like I'm the only guy on camera, but even you hear like at the very beginning, I'm Matt Bronger did warm up, and you hear his voice announcing me. So it's like really, really grateful for that too. So like I really worked hard on it. A lot of people did, and I hope you watch it and enjoy it.
Where did you shoot it?
At the Bell House in Brooklyn.
Oh, nice, great.
Yeah, this is sorry to
go.
to keep going, but like this is in the I don't know how well you know the Bell House, and it's like the intimacy of its aesthetics, but they used to have a big kind of block letters like that you bolt to a wall. It's a B and an H, and it used to be in the green room, and we were shooting a little something against the wall. It's like a big wall in the showroom. And Chris, the director, was like, I bet, or maybe it was Mark, the production designer, was like, I bet this would look better. It would pop if we moved the B and H out into the showroom and just had it against the wall to kind of break up the vastness of this space. And they did, and it looks great on camera. And then the Bell House was like, you know what? We kind of like it there. So every time I go there now, I see that, and I'm like, oh, that's so fun that like
legacy.
That came, that like to this venue means so much to me. And like seeing shows there when I moved to New York and like headlining there for the first time was really thrilling. And then now to like have this like little fingerprint on it that like isn't, doesn't point back to me, but is something that was like, oh, that was from my special, is like so fun and exciting and gratifying.
That's beautiful.
So cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. Listen to Josh's comedy. It's nerdy, but not for virgins. It's not for virgins.
Virgins can listen
Please
too.
don't send me any
They're
death
allowed,
threats
yeah.
for
Yeah,
saying that
I'm
earlier.
not trying to gatekeep this for virgins.
Could be fun to listen to while losing your virginity.
Yeah,
I'll just
that's
throw
right.
that out there.
Put it
Yeah.
on your sex playlist.
Yeah.
All right, next time we'll talk about Sublime. Thank you for coming. This was great.
Thanks.
Thank you, Josh. Delightful as always. Make sure you listen and watch his new special called Positive Reinforcement. It's available right now. Dan, where can we find you on social media?
It's at Dan Wilbur on most social media sites, or at Dan Wilbur Comedy if you want to go to my Instagram or my TikTok. If you love hearing a guy make fun of J.D. Vance, have I got news for you. There's about 60 different videos, and I am so sick of doing it, and that's why we're here to do this podcast. But you can also find me and Zach every Wednesday night at Young Ethel's in Park Slope, Brooklyn, 7:30 p.m. It's always a different lineup. It's always fun. It's free, and we would love to see you there in person.
Absolutely. I am at the Instagram at also Zach Sims, also on TikTok at Zach Sims Comedy. The podcast is on Instagram. A podcast on Instagram with visuals? What can that be? Well, you got to go and find out at My New Thing Podcast on the Instagram. And also, what do we, most importantly, what do we really care about, Dan? What it all comes down
We'd
to?
really love it if you're listening to this right now, is if you would give us 5 stars, maybe 4, if you feel like, hey, maybe Dan wasn't bringing it that week.
We're not greedy.
Give us 5 stars on iTunes or on Spotify. If you love the show, please message us and say this one was great, and we will remember it forever. And we would just love to get the word out about this podcast.
And most importantly, until next week, see ya, hobby holers!